love my HBCU. And boy, I love it, love it. I love it, love it. I love my HBCU. And man, I hope my team they won one. I hope my team they won one. Yeah, man. I hope my team they won one. I hope my team they won one. I tune into the HBCU Sports Lab to see if my team won or lost. If they lost, I'm quiet as a mouse. But if they won, keep tab. I'ma do the dab, yeah. Dr. Cavill, he know what he be talking about. Mike and Charles, they know what they be talking about. They compress the analytic data with the hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they won or lost, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gonna teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Cavill. We're inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington. Mike Washington is back in the building. We had him on Thursday, giving us some love. I was testing him, Charles, as he was doing his D2 NAIA, and that's D2 NCAA side for those that don't understand the vernacular. He put in work. He got it done. Brian, nice. Independent specialist from A&T. A little bit Dave. I'm going to put it that way. But really what they were doing, they were putting in work. They got other calls to make sure that that they were doing their thing and celebrating what they do best. Shout out to Charles. Great job on the show. I had Deuce on there listening on Saturday. Appreciate you giving him the honors of mentioning his name. And he just fell out. He thought the biggest thing in the world. Got to share a little bit with the commissioner, Dr. Charles McCullum, giving him a shout out. Some big news is coming for him. I'm excited about. Shout out to Dr. Kevin Granger and what he was able to put together, and all those folks that supported that measure. I won't escape and allow the news to come out in an appropriate manner, but big news for him. But I also got the chance to share him a fact about Deuce and Miles, Ryan's son, in regards to their HBCU Sports Network. Interviewing myself, interviewing who I call Uncle Alpha Charles interview. And it's fascinating to see them do their work, and they're serious about it. They do a show on Saturday and Sunday, 4:30, 5:30, where they provide updates. And boy, do they go in. I shared that with the commissioner, and he chuckled. He thought it was great. It was amazing. So that was pretty cool, just what is traveling. But before we take a lot of note, I'd be remiss if I didn't tell folks that we certainly understand what's going on in the United States of America that is challenging and trouble for many individuals. And obviously, I want to shout out to HBCU Nightly, because they took it up on their show and had a chance to really discuss it from their viewpoint. Younger demographic, and I think they did a really good job. In Joshua, BJ Sim, to name a few of them that put that together and made sure they got their information out. Herbert, in terms of those that's doing that. So we'll try to take you away from that for about an hour, obviously to entertain you from an HBCU perspective. But we wanted to make sure that we let you know, or certainly I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge the pain that a lot of folks are rightly going through. With that being said, welcome to episode 617 of Inside the HBCU Sports Lab radio show and podcast, a show that's covering the sporting HBCU dash for all things HBCU sports for institutions large and small. From the NAIA to the NCAA, we share insights and information on the HBCU sports culture, HBCU athletic aesthetics to facilitate the story of HBCU athletic programs and the business of HBCU sports. I'm your host, Dr. Kenyatta Cavill, the co-host with Mike Washington, Charles Bishop, and Wilton Jackson II. We are filming from our home studios and sending a signal live to KCWA 430 AM studios with the Texas Radio Hall of Famer, as you all know I always like to say, multi-Hall of Famer Ralph Cooper, in the beautiful home of Texas Southern University from Houston, Texas. With that being said, let me just start down the line with the crew. Mike Washington, how are you doing today?
Oh, I'm doing fine, sir. Just hitting the year of our Lord 2025 going, and in the midst of what is going on and in and around us, trying to keep positive. and trying to move forward. Hopefully, we can take folks away from an hour, but I'd be remiss with all of the things we have us going around us politically and with the natural disasters, the California fires and the freezes and stuff. So hearts and prayers go out to those folks. But I didn't get a chance to do it last week. But I feel the pain of a lot of the young men and women in America, and I'll just leave it at that point. Leave it right there. So
well said. 1876 Athletic Foundation. I see you representing there a little bit with your gear on. Good to see that, as well as the 1876 group that you do your thing with the podcast group. I see you doing your thing, Mike. I see you. Let me go to you, Charles. Charles, how are you doing today?
Doing about well, Dr. Cavill. Like you mentioned, echo Mike's sentiments in light of the political environment. But like you said, hopefully during the course of this hour, we can provide a ray of light to kind of break the monotony, if you will, of all the news that is going on today and this past week. But looking forward to it. Shout out to Santoria Black, broadcast partner from this past week, from doing the Jackson State game with him. Jackson State and Bethune-Cookman, but I really enjoyed it this weekend and got a call from the office today. Got a couple more assignments coming. So.
Kudos. All right. Well done. I see you doing your thing. Keep doing it. Keep growing. Keep bigging up. We're proud of you and we're behind you 100% in terms of what you do. Wilton Jackson II, how you doing today? We know you putting in work. We can't even acknowledge how you moving around the world, boy. I'll tell you. Talent. Let's be talent.
I'm just trying to keep up with y'all, Dr. Cavill, but honestly, I'm doing well. It's that time of the year. It's end of January, going into February. Basketball season is definitely hot now, but to echo what Charles and Mike said about the political climate, and then also just everything going on in the world from a weather standpoint, definitely want to keep everybody in your prayers and things of that nature. But it's an exciting time. It's a busy time, but it's a very, 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 very exciting time when you start talking about HBCU basketball and just college basketball at large. This is the time where, if you haven't been paying attention, this is the right time to come in and really, really dive into if it's your favorite team or the team you hadn't paid attention to since football season ended. You had some to borrow from Charles, like I always do. Some teams started basketball season back in November and December, you know what I mean? But now, hopefully, some of those teams, they're somewhat decent. So it's just a good time to be playing basketball.
Wilton Jackson, I hate to break it to you, but some of the folks have moved on to baseball.
Yeah, that too. Yeah.
I know some folks
in softball. I'm just saying. But great point and perfect way to segue as we get back into the news. Today's episode of Inside the HBCU Sports Lab is sponsored by THG Agency, LLC. THG Agency is a company that provides sporting, education, consulting, and data analytics. With that being said, we'll do our last segment. Well, we'll get into the fact what Wilton kind of alluded to. We're about to get into the midway mark. Yeah. And for professors, as we talked about in the lab, we like to talk about midterm grades. So we may give you a chance to drop, a couple of midterm grades on a couple of teams here and there, see what you're thinking about from that perspective. But with that being going on, let me stick with you, Wilton. What's on your mind in terms of news of the day? What's hot and heavy from the HBCU sports perspective that has your interest this week thus far?
So right now I'm going to dive into some of the MEAC weekly basketball honors on the women's side. Norfolk State guard Diamond Johnson was named the MEAC Player of the Week. North Carolina Central Shakira Foster earned Rookie of the Week honors, while teammate Jada Tiggett earned Defensive Player of the Week honors. Johnson recorded 24 points, 8 rebounds, 7 assists, and 3 steals, and 1 block while shooting 10 of 19 from the field for the Spartans in their hard-fought win over Howard. Foster averaged 11 points, 4 rebounds, 3.5 assists, and 2.5 steals during the 2-0 week for the Eagles. In North Carolina Central's win over South Carolina State, she tallied 17 points, 5 rebounds, 4 steals, and a career-high 6 assists. Meanwhile, for Tiggett in the win over Pfeiffer, she set a new career high with 13 rebounds, adding 18 points. Nice double-double there. 3 assists, 3 blocks, and 1 steal. For the week, Foster averaged a double-double of 11.5 points and 10 rebounds with 3 blocks, a steal, 2.5 assists in a 2-0 week for the Eagles.
Nice report. Shout out to the MEAC women over there. That's Wilton. Made sure y'all got some love for the week. It is getting interesting as they play. They just had the single game this week, but we'll get back into those double weekday games where you do your Saturday and Monday. With that being said, let's go to Charles. Charles, what's on your mind? What's hot in from your perspective from an HBCU week?
Yeah, I got men's superlatives on the SWAC side as Kenyatta McClain from Texas Southern. He was the men's basketball player of the week. Milton Matthews from Florida A&M. He was the impact player of the week. And then Deshaun Ruffin, he was the newcomer of the week in the SWAC. Let's take a look at what these gentlemen did. Kenyatta McClain, he averaged 22 points per game this past week for Texas Southern during road games at Alabama A&M and Alabama State. He also was a significant contributor on the boards as he averaged 5.5 rebounds per game. So he was your SWAC offensive player of the week. The impact player of the week, Mr. Matthews from Florida A&M during road outings at Jackson State and Alcorn. He averaged 16.5 points while shooting 43% from the field. And FAMU, they won 4 consecutive, Dr. CAVIL'S.
We have to get into that.
Yes, indeed.
Fascinating on this side. Shout out to Rattlers that people wanted to kind of bury him. They said, hold on.
They getting it done. And
they getting it done. That was a big win.
Last
seriously in Jackson after Jackson was playing some really good basketball and rolling. With that being said, let me go to Big Mike. Mike, what's on your mind this week from the HBCU perspective, brother?
Well, so have we talked about the SWAC women players of the week? I don't think we have. So as usual, the SWAC announced their women's players of the week. Texas Southern's Alasia Fontroy and Jackson State's Talia Dilworth, SWAC players of the week. Fontroy has been a key contributor this season for Texas Southern as the Lady Tigers remain unbeaten. I'll say that again, remain unbeaten in league play. Last week, she averaged 19.5 points per game, 9.5 rebounds per game. That's boyfriend breakups, y'all. As Texas Southern claimed its wins over Alabama A&M and Alabama State. Dilworth averaged 21 points per game during the Jackson State contest against Bethune and FAMU. She shot 53% from the field while averaging 32.5 minutes per game as the Lady Tigers improved to 6-1 in league play. So those are your SWAC women's weekly honors for January 28th. Go do it.
Good stuff there. With that being said, Charles, any additional things that you want to add? I know what was on my mind before I turn that to you is, I think it's kind of leaked out there, it seems, with FAMU returning to the Orange Blossom Classic, and it looks like the game will be against Howard. I can either confirm that or deny, as they say out there, but it's out there. I think people will find out soon enough what that looks like. For those that are still excited about these HBCU football schedules trickling out, we got one from Alcorn State, 2025 schedule. The Braves play a SEC school, FCS non-conference game opponent in the mix, and then they get into their conference slate. Should be fascinating to see what they do this year in terms of the FCS programs out of the Southland. That's Northwestern State, where they get on the road for that. They have that Lincoln University Division II program, California, that we've seen pop on HBCU schedules over the last 3-4 years. They're on the schedule at Alcorn. But a couple of intriguing things as you talk about the first time people officially put out there. They go to Tallahassee. FAMU gets them on October the 18th. That's a Saturday there. Fascinating to see what that looks like in terms of that matchup. They end the season again, as everybody knows, against Jackson State, but it's on the road. It's in Jackson, Mississippi. So it'll be fascinating to kind of see what that looks like from that perspective in regards to the Alcorn State 2025 football schedule. You can see in detail in terms of all of their games slated for next season. With that being said, Charles, did you want to add anything before we take this break?
Yeah, well, real quick, of course, we got the Super Bowl is set between Philadelphia and the Kansas City Chiefs, so we got some HBCU representation in the Super Bowl. As we take a look at from the Philadelphia Eagles, Christian Parker, who is the passing game coordinator and defensive backs coach. He began his coaching career at Virginia State back in 2013. Of course, this comes to us from HBCUsports.com. Roy Anderson, who is the quarterbacks coach for Philadelphia, he had his graduate assistant. He started out at FAMU, so definitely wanted to give shout-outs to those guys getting to the Super Bowl. You also have Eric Dickerson, who's the offensive quality control coach. He is a graduate of South Carolina State, played offensive lineman there from 2013 to 2016. I always pay attention to the Kansas City Chiefs, Doc. They're back in the Super Bowl. Of course, long history of Chiefs having HBCU representation, as my class will tell you, because they know well about Lloyd Wells in terms of what he was able to do for the Kansas City Chiefs. But Kansas City Chiefs, Otis Taylor, exactly. Buck Buchanan got a lot of HBCU representation with regards to the Kansas City Chiefs. But a couple of Chiefs that I wanted to make mention of: Josh Williams. Of course, he played at Fayetteville State. He's a defensive back for the Kansas City Chiefs. Terry Bratton, he's defensive line coach. He played at Howard and Tuskegee, so there's representation there. Kevin Saxon, offensive assistant. He, of course, had his starts at Benedict College as he was on the coaching staff there. So definitely want to give a shout out to the HBCU representation in the Super Bowl.
Good stuff. Good stuff. With that, we'll take our first break. We'll come back on the other side and get into week number 4, the top 5 programs in week number 4. Dr. Liz inside the HBCU Sports Lab, HBCU Huddle Report. With that being said, let's take a first break and come back on the other side.
Looking for the ultimate cultural experience of 2025? The Zora Outdoor Festival of the Arts is where you need to be. From January 31st to February 2nd, Eatonville, Florida will come alive with incredible live performances from the Levert Experience and the Bar Cave. Immerse yourself in interactive art. Shop from over 80 vendors. Take a journey through history with a new virtual tour app. And enjoy family-friendly STEM activities. Plus, don't miss the unforgettable R&B tribute to the legends, honoring talents such as Whitney Houston, Marvin Gaye, and Luther Vandross. This is more than a festival. It's a celebration of Eatonville's rich cultural heritage. Visit zorafestival.org for tickets.
Hey y'all, it's your girl Sonia from She Say Sports. Make sure to check us out every Friday morning at 9 a.m. on Black College Sports Network, YouTube, and Linktree. And please don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube page.
Morehouse College and Tuskegee University men's basketball teams were selected to compete in the 2025 NBA HBCU Classic presented by AT&T. The 4th annual NBA HBCU Classic will be played in the Bay Area as part of NBA All-Star 2025 and will once again celebrate the rich traditions, all-court athleticism, and commitment to excellence of the HBCU community. For tickets, visit nba.com/all-star.
Greetings, Panthers. My name is Roland Austin, and I'm one of the directors at the 1876 Athletic Foundation. The 1876 Athletic Foundation was formed to promote the success of all 343 student athletes. Our overall goal is to fund scholarships for all of our student athletes. We ask that you help us in achieving this goal by donating to the 1876 Athletic Foundation via the QR code below or 1876.foundation. Your generous donation will help us continue to assist the needs of all of our Panther athletes. Thanks, and go Panthers.
Compress the analytic data with your hip-hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they wanna lose, and who the ball, So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gonna teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Ville with Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Let's get into Dr. Ville's Inside the HBCU Huddle Report. Week number 4, let's go with the women at the major division level. With that being said, let's start with the poll rankings as those teams that dropped out, if you would. Dropped out this week is Howard Bison. They took an L against that Norfolk State team. Not to surprise anybody, it was close for a while, but Norfolk State just continues to seem to do what they do. So other teams are ascending. So Howard, not playing a lot of conference games, kind of dropped out of the poll rankings. With that being said, let's go into those top 5 just outside that are receiving votes. We'll start with those Howard Bison that dropped out. They're 3-1, but they're still right in the mix at 46 points, if you would. You have the Alabama A&M Bulldogs playing strong. They had 2 tough losses, but teams above them are really playing well. So they still in the mix at 5-2 with 33 points. Behind them, Grambling State Tigers started out slow, but they're right there around the 500 mark, but they're just slightly above it, as you see, 4-3 with 21 points. North Carolina Central Eagles, surprising folks, they're at 3-2 in the MEAC race thus far, I should say. And Coppin State Eagles are also at 3-2 out of the MEAC with 11 points. But let's get to the stellar 5, the top 5, the Jackson 5, if you would. And guess who you start with at number 5? That Jackson State Tigers. 6-1 with 51 points. They remain at number 5. At number 4, we have our new entrant this week, which is none other than the Southern Jaguars at 6-1, 54 points. They were not ranked last week, but with Howard fading out and Southern playing strong, they jump in the top 5 at number 4 in week number 4. Bringing us to number 3, North Carolina A&T Aggies. They were rolling through the Coastal. They stumped the toe a little bit, but they bounced back with a big win the following game. So they sit at 7-1. They still have one first-place vote, but they do fall a spot at 62 points. They fall from the 2 spot. Bringing us a new number 2 this week is the Texas Southern Tigers. Probably the surprise team of the season this far. It's Texas Southern Tigers that sit at 7-0, 2 first-place votes at 76 points. Previous ranked 3, so they slide up a spot. Can they knock on the door of Norfolk State Spartans that had a big win over a previously top 5 team this past week on Saturday? They got it done, and they remain undefeated in conference play at 5-0. 5 first-place votes with 77 points. They remain at number 1. The Norfolk State Spartans continue to hold the top spot in week number 4 as the number 1 team inside the HBCU Huddle Report for week number 4. Let's go around the horn, if you would, and see what the professors think this week about the women's top 5 rankings, starting with Wilton. What are your thoughts in terms of what's going on in week number 4? As you said, things are starting to shape out. Not a lot of changes in terms of who's in the top 5. A little bit of rearrangement here and there. So what are your thoughts?
So when I look at the top 5, number 1, obviously Norfolk State. This is the team that's been number 1 pretty much for the predominant part of the season. And this is the most complete team when you start talking about women's HBCU basketball. We talked about Diamond Johnson, obviously a stellar player, Kiera Wheeler. Like, they're really playing their best basketball. They've been playing, but they're really playing their best basketball. I said on a previous show that this game, when they played Howard, this was going to be the game that we needed to watch to see which one of the teams was really going to create that separation when you start talking about MEAC women's basketball. And obviously Norfolk State answered the bell, got the win. And Dr. Cavill, you alluded to it, like it was close at one point in the game, but then Norfolk State really just took control of the game and never looked back. You talk about a stellar job that Larry Vickers is doing with that program. And then the surprise that continues to still be the surprise. And, you and Charles are getting a front seat to Texas Southern and what Coach Skeety is doing there. I mean, if you don't get excited in watching what Texas Southern is doing on the women's side of basketball, I mean, for years we've seen the men dominate and continue to compete year in and year out. But it's exciting to watch. I would definitely say I haven't watched a full 4 quarters of Texas Southern women's basketball, but the couple games I have watched, at least 3/4 of a game, they look really good. And they're going to be a problem for some teams going down the stretch of the season. North Carolina A&T just continues to win. You're talking about a player in Jordan Dorsey who is really leading the Aggies in that Colonial Conference. They're playing well. Southern is playing well. And then with Jackson State, Charles saw it. We both saw it on Saturday. They got a win. against Bethune-Cookman. And this is a Jackson State team that's continuing to gel, continuing to find itself. You talked to Coach Richards after the game, and, they just are continuously finding ways to win. She even told us in the press conference, she said they didn't necessarily play their best ball, but at the same time, they got the win. And I think that the more that she continues to build the win, the more confidence fans believe in her. And this is a Jackson State team that right now, at the end of January, going into February, could be dangerous when you start talking about SWAC play and SWAC tournament ending in February and going into March.
Let's go with you, Charles. What are your thoughts in terms of the top 5?
Well, I think the first thing that jumps out with me was there's a 4-5 matchup coming up this Thursday. When you take a look at Southern and Jackson State, that's going to be huge. And we really get to see, I think, for the first time, whether either one of these two teams are really that tight team. And from what I've seen thus far, Jackson State looks really well. And when you start taking a look at the fact that it's 13 new players to the roster, the way that they've gelled has been as much of a surprise as Texas Southern being number 2, because Texas Southern has been a tremendous team that nobody saw coming. I think they were picked to finish 9th. But when you take a look at Coach Skeet and her flux offense that is designed to get players some good open looks, and find Troy and Cortland Loudermill, they're taking full advantage of what she's been able to create there at Texas Southern. So kudos to those teams. But big matchup coming up with Southern and Jackson State. Like you said, North Carolina A&T, they stubbed their toe, but they're still right there in the mix. And you can't argue with the first two teams. I think they are two of the better teams playing basketball at this point in the season.
You always talk about this. In fact, both of y'all allow folks to understand that when the Jaguars and Tigers match up, it's always fascinating in terms of what that looks like. And then you talk about, in this case, it'll be a top 5 matchup, 4-5. It'll be interesting to see what that looks like. Before we go to it, though, I have to ask this question. And Mike is having a little internet problem, so we'll see if we can get him back in and get it rectified. But we're going to try to push forward. With that being said, who are you more surprised with? And I know it's in different ways, but if I, had to put your hand behind your back and kind of twist your arm, as you say, which one are you going to say is most surprising? And then, like anything we do on this show, you got to say why. Charles, Texas Southern Tigers or Jackson State Tigers?
That is a really tough question, because I absolutely did not see Texas Southern playing the way that they're playing. I mean, and they have faced down Southern. They faced down Southern, knocked them off. They've knocked off Jackson State as well. So I would probably say Texas Southern is as big a surprise as any team that we see here in the top 5. But what Coach Margaret Richards is doing, like I said, 13 new players to the roster, and the way they've come together is she has a steal into Leah Dillworth, because it's difficult staying in front of her. She can get to the rim when she feels like getting to the rim.
Yep. I agree. Wilton, I'm going to test you. Yeah. Which direction you going? Which one is more surprise and why?
I think I have to stick and kind of lean with Charles here as well, because when we started the season, I wouldn't have never guessed at the end of January going into week 4 that we would be talking about Texas Southern women's basketball team being number 2 of 5 teams. Like, we didn't see that. But again, shout out to Coach Skeet and what she's doing and the players and how she's bought in. A lot of times when you have different players coming into your program, especially with the way that this NIL works and players leaving in and out of your program, to get a group of players to buy into your concepts and what you're doing and to have success, to win multiple games. Like, the saying that it's hard to win one game, it's hard to win multiple games, it's hard to be undefeated in conference play. And the way that they've taken down some of the teams that they've taken down, like them beating Jackson State, bringing us a new program, new coach, but to see that she was able to do that right now at this point in the season, spoke volumes. I think that Texas Southern is the most surprising. I think Jackson State with Coach Richards, she had the most what's the word I'm looking for? She had the most pressure on her to succeed, based off of who she was coming behind and Coach Reed. And now she's definitely succeeding, and she's constantly, the more that the Tigers continue to win, she's definitely gaining more confidence from the fan base. And you can kind of start to see that when you look at some of the cutaways inside the AAC, that fans are definitely getting behind the Jackson State women's basketball team.
Yeah.
Mike, before we close out this segment, I'd be remiss if I didn't give you a chance to talk about your thoughts on the top 5 before we close it out, and appreciate you fighting through it and getting back in here. Top 5, week number 4 for the
week. Yeah, I apologize for everything, for the technical difficulties. I guess, my thing is Wilton, I kind of hit it on the nail. Statistically, when you look at like the first 8 to 11 games, that fluctuates. You can kind of nominalize that and say, all right, let's wait till they get into the season. They're at that point now, and you can see some really outrunners. Norfolk State scoring 70 points a game, allowing their opponents not more than 58. That's balance. And if you look at what Texas Southern is doing, I can't remember the last time they started out the gates like this. They've had great teams, but they haven't. I can't recall. And here you can't help but to follow Texas Southern sports. So you have to be excited about what they're doing on the court. And of course, their numbers are showing up with what they're doing. So I know I came in late, but I got to give kudos to the Texas Southern Lady Tigers and this Norfolk State team. Boy, they are in beast mode. I think somebody in the chat said that they gave. They're giving people that baby oil treatment. So I don't
know. This is not the time right now when you can talk about this.
I'm just saying.
5 years ago, maybe even a year ago. Right now, we don't need to be talking about no baby oil. We gonna take the first break. I was going to say something else, but I'm going into the break, and I'll wait on the other side when we come back to give you my thoughts and updates on that. Let's get into this second break before we get into more trouble. This is the Dean of the College of HBCU Sports, Kenyatta CAVIL'S of Dr. CAVIL'S Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. Come mix it up in the lab where the course lecture is in session every Tuesday from 6 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time on Facebook Live, YouTube Spreaker, or the BCSN app, as we discuss all things about the HBCU sports culture, including exploring the week that was in the sporting HBCU diaspora, as well as the upcoming week of HBCU sports. With me, the Dean, the College of HBCU Sports, on Dr. CAVIL'S Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. Course lecture dismissed.
It's like a loop machine. All around town, trying to get down. It's like a loop machine.
You're looking for the latest information on Southern University sports, the Southwestern Athletic Conference, and HBCU athletics. There's only one place to go. Tune in to the Carlos Brown Show, exclusively on the Black College Sports Network.
Looking for the ultimate cultural experience of 2025? The Zora Outdoor Festival of the Arts is where you need to be. From January 31st to February 2nd, Eatonville, Florida will come alive with incredible live performances from the Levert Experience and the Bar Cave. Immerse yourself in interactive art. Shop from over 80 vendors. Take a journey through history with a new virtual tour app. And enjoy family-friendly STEM activities. Plus, don't miss the unforgettable R&B tribute to the legends, honoring talents such as Whitney Houston, Marvin Gaye, and Luther Vandross. This is more than a festival. It's a celebration of Eatonville's rich cultural heritage. Visit zorafestival.org for tickets.
Compress the analytic data with your hip-hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they wanna loud, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gonna teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Bill inside the HBCU Sports Lab. I was going to put this out there, but I had to get out of that last segment as fast as I could. But I was thinking, how challenging would be, or at least how interesting it would be, if you could find a mid-break point between this where you would have and people have talked about this, but because we have the rankings, I think it becomes a little more interesting. If you had even just 14 matchup between the SWAC and the MEAC, where you looked at on the women's side, where you had Norfolk facing up against a Texas Southern, and you had a Howard Bison facing up against a Jackson State. That would be fascinating to put some additional excitement in the middle of this conference race, and then turn around after that's kind of crowned, and then get right back into it. But with that being said, we'll look at that on the men's side after we give you your top 5 here. Again, we'll start with those teams dropping out. We can move through that pretty quickly because this week in the men's top 5, there wasn't a team that dropped out. So a lot of things are stabilized on the men's side, but little changes in terms of those receiving votes and where they are. So this may be a little more interest for you here. We have the Florida A&M Rattlers sitting just outside the top 5 on a 4-game win streak with 50 points. They above Bethune-Cookman Wildcats is set at 4-3. They lost that first conference game against Bethune-Cookman Wildcats, but the Wildcats have kind of gone on the slide. But that being said, North Carolina Central Eagles have won 2 straight. They sit at 3-2 in the MEAC race. You have Alcorn State Braves that also sitting 4-3, and after a tough loss to Southern, they came back home, and FAMU had that second half comeback after trailing by 20-plus points. They got it done and held on to win in Brave Nation, which is challenging with that court, particularly down there late in that game. And then they backed it up with a big win on the road against Jackson. With that being said, you have also Morgan State Bears sit at 3-2, and you'll see that they've actually defeated 2 of the teams at the top of their conference. So Morgan State is intriguing because they've also had some losses to the bottom part of the conference, which Morgan State Bears is going to show up. Obviously, you see the talent is there because they had that win over Norfolk State as well. With that being said, let's get where it really gets fun. Let's get into the top 5 on the men's side. As you see, you have the Howard Bison. They sit at 3-1, 54 points. They remain at 5. Even they had that tough loss to Norfolk State, really got beat up in that matchup. As Norfolk State got it done both sides, men's and women's, coming into that matchup in the MEAC this past Saturday. At number 4, you have Jackson State Tigers, 5-2. Oh, they lost to FAMU. They stay in the top 5 with the big win previous to that against Bethune-Cookman. They are at number 4. Bringing us to number 3, Texas Southern Tigers. They are rolling after that early loss to Southern. They've won everything since then, had a couple of close matchups, but they're getting it done. They sit at 6-1, 2 first-place votes, 87 points, and they remain at 3. Bringing us to number 2, Norfolk State Spartans. They are sit at 4-1. They have 3 first-place votes, 102 points, and they remain at 2. At this point, you kind of see the refrain. Nothing has really changed as teams just continue to win when you get in the top 5. So number 1 is Southern Jaguar, 7-0, 7 first-place votes, 105 points, remain at number 1. We've seen Southern kind of do this before, so I don't know what that is about. Yeah, a fade late, but they're probably one of the most quiet teams that sits in the top of the poll rankings. They had a really good, solid non-conference schedule. They've gotten off and they're undefeated. They defeated other teams in the top 5. Obviously, they have a big matchup coming up with Jackson State. Will be interesting, much like on the women's side. On the men's side, you got a top 5 matchup. This one involves the number 1 team ranked in major division, or at least how I see it inside the HBCU Sports Lab. They just continue to move forward and get it done. So I'm fascinated about that perspective, and kind of want to get your thoughts. Top 5, not a lot of changes, but what is the problem with Southern Jaguars maybe not getting the love that some people think they should? Charles?
It's boring, but in a good way. And I say that like this: their leading scorer is only averaging 10.9 points per game. And so it is team. It is when you talk about Southern, and it's beautiful to watch. And then good luck getting the 70 points against Southern. They python you to death. They choke you out. So that's kind of the thing that really stands out for me with regards to Southern. They might not be getting the love because, you haven't had that one person jump out with that, 27, 28 point, 30 point game. But from a team perspective, they are beautiful basketball to watch, especially if you love watching teams really go at you hard on the defensive end of the court.
Good stuff there. Wilton, what are your thoughts in terms of the top five? Same question to you, Southern. Are they getting the love they should? Or are you like Charles and just saying the basketball is not quite exciting enough?
I mean, I like good basketball. I like to see ball movement. I like to see basketball is supposed to be a team sport, and that's what you get when you watch Southern play basketball.
Exactly.
Now, when you look at like where things go towards the latter half of the season, we know some of the teams that are often playing in the semifinals and the championship game of the SWAC when it comes to the month of March. Well, we know who was playing last year, and it certainly wasn't Southern. So with that, it's just kind of like, okay, will Southern be able to keep up this same momentum throughout the month of February as it gets closer to the SWAC tournament going into March? So that's my spiel on Southern. As long as it's a winning formula, I don't care if your leading scorer only has 10.6 points.
Exactly.
You're still winning games. And if you're the coach of that team, you still getting your paycheck, and you ain't locked out your office the next day. So when it comes to Norfolk State, this is what I expect from Norfolk State. And shout out to the job, obviously, that Coach Robert Jones is doing, having his guys ready and prepared year in and year out. And then, of course, Texas Southern, no secret here, a team that's always competing in the SWAC. And also specifically, this is a Texas Southern team that's always competing when it matters the most at the end of the season. When you start talking about getting to the SWAC tournament, playing in the SWAC tournament, that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to win every SWAC championship game. But I guarantee you, a year without a Texas Southern being at least in the mix would be absolutely crazy. Now,
we can go as far as say they'll be in the championship game.
They flip a switch.
I mean, just saying. And then you're looking at a Jackson State team that had a lot of injuries last year and was still able to get to the SWAC tournament. But now it's like this is a Jackson State team that I'm a little worried about. They've been on this run, but then obviously ran into some trouble yesterday against FAMU. But even in that win against Bethune-Cookman, Coach Mo Williams told us in the press conference, like, he was not pleased, neither was his players pleased after that win. They got the win, but they were up by as many as, I think, 16 or 17.
Up by 16, by 16. Lost it over a 4-minute period,
Absolutely. That was unacceptable. What happened was they got really confident in Deshaun Ruffin having the game of his life. Yeah. I mean, anything he wanted on the court was automatic, literally. So I think that when they got complacent in that, and obviously Bethune-Cookman started putting some runs together, putting some offensive sets, that really, made the difference. But this is a Jackson State team. I'm looking to see how they'll bounce back, specifically against a really, really dangerous Southern team, as we just said, that likes to play good, sound team basketball. And with Howard, I kind of fell off on the limb a little bit with Howard after they lost to Morehouse. Obviously give the props. I know Eddie Drew somewhere watching this show, and I know he's really glad that they beat Howard because he was not high on Blake Harper at all. But I still think this is going to be a good Howard team when it comes to getting to the MEAC tournament next month. Well, in February going into March. So I'm good with Howard being at number 5.
Well, Dr. Carey said he wasn't happy about Jackson State's slow start. We had to chime in to talk about part of that was because the Rattlers choked them out of that slow start, if you would. So fascinating, as you alluded to, Southern being able to snake bite and python people out of their start. That'd be intriguing on that matchup. But with that being said, let me see what Big Mike thinks in terms of what's going on over here in the top 5.
Doc, I have nothing wrong with this top 5. You asked about Southern. They are not the pretty baby. They are not the sexy lady. I mean, I think Charles alluded to it. You look statistically across the board, they don't have not one score in the top 15. Yeah. I was going top 10, not the top 15. Field goal percentage, they're middle of the rack. What they allow opponents is really good. Rebounding, they don't have one, not the top 10. So they play a team defense, opportunistic at times, but they are just not that sexy woman that everybody's taking to the ball, but they're still in first place. So I think that's why. The other thing is my memory. I know I'm 50, whatever years, none of your business years old, but I seem to recall Southern jumping out to this kind of lead and a couple of years past and kind of falling off at the end. And so I wonder, is this kind of a repeat? I think Wilton was getting to it. We've seen Southern jump to good leads, and then they get to the final. You're like, well, where was Southern? So I kind of have seen this show a little bit before. Maybe not the same. The tune may be a little different. But in those years, they had, at least one or two leading scorers. This is a opportunistic team ball based organization. And then the Norfolk State and Howard. I don't know. They lost. Yeah, they lost to Norfolk State, but didn't they lose to Morehouse and somebody else the game before? Bowie State.
Yeah, they lost to Bowie State.
No offense against Bowie State or Morehouse, but man, that's 3 L's in a row. Shouldn't you be at least 2 or 3 out of that if you're gonna be in the top 5? Just saying. So
I tell you what, in the top 2 teams, they jump out for me because they both are keeping teams under 70 points per game. When you talk about Southern and Norfolk,
bingo,
they play tremendous defense. Yep,
that's it. Both
stuff,
teams, their defense speaks out. They're keeping their teams below 70, one below 60 points, really. So
good stuff when you think about it. If we did this midpoint break, if you said on that, you would have potentially a Southern Norfolk State matchup. Howard, Texas Southern. Yeah, Texas Southern, Norfolk State, Southern Howard. Be fascinating in terms of what that would look like in terms of getting into the middle of it. With that being said, we're going to get prepared to take our next break, and Wilton and Mike will have to jump out of here as they have some other obligations they got to get into. So the last segment, Charles and I will get into some midterm analysis and try to see, what he thinks in regards to who's living up to the coursework that's going on. But before I do that, Wilton, any final items that you want to share before you get out of this?
I just want to elaborate about that Southern and Jackson State matchup on Thursday. It's going to be a big game. Probably won't be the most sexiest game, which we know. But I think that game is a game that Jackson State really needs, especially coming off of their loss to FAMU. We'll see if they get it because it's at Southern. That Southern is a hard place to play. Southern is definitely a hard place to get a win at. So it'll be fascinating to see if the Tigers are able to come out with a victory against the Jaguars.
I keep hearing people talk about how childish Southern is, but there's various reasons. Never mind. Mike, any last thing you want to bring to the table for you?
Kansas City Chiefs of the swag.
Seems like it anyway.
No, I would just say at the midterm, you're starting to see the weeds separated from the chaff. I agree that Jackson State Southern game is going to be a game. I'm more interested to see how Jackson State's going to play, really, to be honest. So other than that, thank you. I just want to say that handkerchief that Wilton is wearing has not moved. It is a well-structured handkerchief. I know I've been gone for about a week and a half or so. Did you set a new stand? Chuck got the little Kenneth Cole
you got one
going on.
Here, chest hair.
I mean, do I need to change? Somebody need to send me the memo because Chuck looking like Kenneth Cole with chocolate and Wilton looking like everybody's business to them. So, I mean, they are looking great. I mean, I didn't miss the memo, I guess.
Thank you, Mike. Always fun to have you on here, Wilton, doing your thing. And I know you would stay on if you had another segment. But we're going to let you do what you do. Charles and I will handle it. Let's take our last break and come back on the other side and get a little more into Charles's thoughts on some of these grades as things start to chug along. We'll be right back after this last break.
Appreciate it.
Looking for the ultimate cultural experience of 2025? The Zora Outdoor Festival of the Arts is where you need to be. From January 31st to February 2nd, Eatonville, Florida will come alive with incredible live performances from the Levert Experience and the Bar Cave. Immerse yourself in interactive art. Shop from over 80 vendors. Take a journey through history with a new virtual tour app. And enjoy family-friendly STEM activities. Plus, Don't miss the unforgettable R&B tribute to the legends, honoring talents such as Whitney Houston, Marvin Gaye, and Luther Vandross. This is more than a festival. It's a celebration of Eatonville's rich cultural heritage. Visit zorafestival.org for tickets.
Hey y'all, it's your girl Sonia from She Say Sports. Make sure to check us out every Friday morning at 9 a.m. on Black College Sports Network, YouTube, and Linktree. And please don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube page.
Morehouse College and Tuskegee University men's basketball teams were selected to compete in the 2025 NBA HBCU Classic presented by AT&T. The fourth annual NBA HBCU Classic will be played in the Bay Area as part of NBA All-Star 2025 and will once again celebrate the rich traditions, on-court athleticism, and commitment to excellence of the HBCU community. For tickets, visit nba.com/all-star.
Greetings, Santhus. My name is Roland Austin, and I'm one of the directors at the 1876 Athletic Foundation. The 1876 Athletic Foundation was formed to promote the success of all 343 student athletes. Our overall goal is to fund scholarships for all of our student athletes. We ask that you help us in achieving this goal by donating to the 1876 Athletic Foundation via the QR code below or 1876.foundation. Your generous donation will help us continue to assist the needs of all of our Panther athletes. Thanks, and go Panthers.
Compress the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they wanna lose, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Will inside the HBCU Sports Lab. You knew, Charles, I wasn't going to leave you by yourself there, did you? Oh, and the rest of the lab, we're going to do what we do. We got none other than AD Drew in the building, the best pinch hitter in the business. When you need somebody, he comes through in the clutch every time. Oh, it's like the sixth man since we're in basketball. When things are just not calling right, you look to the first man coming off the bench, and that will be Drew. As a former basketball coach, he certainly knows how that goes. And as he continues to make sure he uplifts Morehouse College, we're going to talk about that's what they did when they went up there to Washington, D.C. versus Howard and got that W. With that being said, welcome to In the Lab, Drew.
Appreciate y'all, gentlemen. Appreciate y'all, man. Just try to wrap my head around some of the stuff I heard today that's going on, that's outside the athletic world, and unfortunately, how that may affect some of us in the athletic world. So I'll just leave it right there right now. We're all trying to wrap my head around.
No, that's perfectly said. As folks that watch our show certainly understand exactly what you're referencing. With that being said, let's talk a little bit about what you've seen thus far in terms of the basketball. In a lot of ways, we're at that midway point in terms of the team. You know, we got this weekend before we kind of lock it in. And so not too early to do that. As we get into midterm, if you would, and you're telling your students to prepare for the test, let's look a little bit about what that looks like. Drew, I know on Thursday we do the independent, so we're going to focus a little bit about the major division. Charles, let's start with the women. Again, you know, as we like to say, sugar's not dead, so we focus on women first, and then we get into breaking down the men's side. If we look at Norfolk State, obviously they set the curve, it seems like. Yeah. Last couple of years, certainly, based on what happened in non-conference, doesn't surprise me what you're probably going to give them a grade. But how much are they setting the curve by what you've seen thus far when you talk about Norfolk State Spartans on the women's side?
They are setting the curve way out there. I mean, because they're coming up A's on every test. I don't care how hard the test is. that is how good Norfolk State's women are. When you take a look at them, and we were talking about on the men's side, talking about how good they were defensively, but the Norfolk State team is the exact carbon copy of what you see on the men's side. They get it done. They get it done with team defense, but I mean, they won 7 in a row, and there really isn't a team, I think, in the MEAC that's just even in their stratosphere. I mean, they are heads and tails above. I think Howard. I think over Coppin State. I just think that they're in a different class.
Good for you, Drew. I'm gonna go with you. We kind of talked a little bit about this, so I'm gonna go to the SWAC. Didn't get a chance to ask you this question, but I saw you were listening in. Who are you more surprised on the women's side? Texas Southern or Jackson State? I know it's probably different ways that you may be surprised in terms, but if I forced you to talk about one over the other, which one has you most surprised when you talk about on the women's side of basketball, particularly in the SWAC, in terms of their grades?
Can I give you none of the above and give you the other? You know how you got A, B, C, or other? Can I give you the other?
Yes.
How about Alabama A&M? And the fact that with so much hype around Dawn Thornton coming from UAPB over to Alabama A&M and them not being at the top, I think that is as much of a surprise as Texas Southern is. I think that is more of a shocker to the basketball heads than anything else. Jackson State, I mean, yeah, we expected a drop off of Jackson State, but come on now. It's Jackson State. Certain programs just program, just how you say certain people just go do what they do. Jackson State is going to do what they do. And when it comes to round ball on the women's side, they just gonna win. That's what it seems like. And we act like this just started with the previous coach. Jackson State has a history of winning on the women's side. Correct me if I'm wrong, Charles.
That's true. Very true.
Yes.
Very well said. Now, I think a lot of the fans from D would tell you all that now, but I think at the front of the season they were kind of like. But I like
it was not boisterous Jackson State fan in the beginning.
No. Right. No. Good stuff. So if I forced you, sticking with you, Drew, a little bit here, are you saying that Bulldogs have an A- or B+ when you look in the previous class with the student? They were just acing classes A+ in a lot of ways in terms of your expectation what they would do coming in the season. It's just midterm, so it's not like they can do a little time, but you kind of whisper to the person and to the side. Are you saying they have an A- or B+ right?
Which team are we talking about again, Dr. Cavill?
Bulldogs, Alabama A&M.
Alabama A&M. Right now, I would have to give them a B. They're that student who you heard how good they, Dr. Cavill, Charles, we're all educators. You've heard this student, they've aced other classes, and you just expect them to come into your classroom and knock out the curriculum, knock out the syllabus. But then they turn in an assignment late. Then they don't, they don't read the instructions properly on another assignment. They have A, talent, but they're giving you B, work. That's what the Bulldogs are. Yeah, for lack of a better word. But can I just throw one more out there, Dr. Cavill? We talked about Norfolk, we talked about Alabama A&M, Jackson State, Texas Southern. What about that former MEAC school out of North Carolina?
North Carolina A&T?
That would be the one. And we they're over there in the coastal, but let's not forget about them.
Yeah, they're playing good ball.
Yeah. Don't forget about them. They're playing good ball, and if they were still the MEAC, I would love to see them and Norfolk challenging each other.
Yeah, that'd be fascinating. That'd be a nice matchup. In terms of the women's side, 2 women teams playing in non-conference or a midpoint, something like as we said, the break in the season. With that being said, let me go back to you, Charles. Go ahead.
No, I'm looking at something, and it's not to divert away from basketball, but apparently Grambling and Jackson State will meet each other in Las Vegas football season. So I just
and classic.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure if it's a classic as of yet, but it looks as though October 25th, it'll be Jackson State and Grambling in Las Vegas, Allegiant Stadium.
I don't know how else
They going out to Las Vegas. I guarantee you, somebody.
Yeah.
You might not know the name of the class.
Yeah, not know the name of it. It's got to be a classic of some sort.
Yeah, and it's just like Charles to find a way to put football back in. Let's get back into basketball with the men's side. What grades you giving some ends before we close this thing out?
I definitely have to give Southern an A for what they've been able to do, and again, it hasn't been sexy basketball, but it's consistent. It's getting it done week in, week out, just playing good hard-nosed defense. I think for me, I think Jackson State has been a bit of a surprise. I did not expect them to be. I expected them to be somewhere close to the upper echelon, and I think injuries really took a toll last year, but it was hard to kind of get a gauge on where they were. But they are definitely a solid B when you take a look at them this past season. The one that's kind of surprising for me is Alcorn. I really expected Alcorn to really be back in the mix in terms of being in the SWAC elite, so that's a bit surprising for me.
What do you, since we just had somebody talk about Brian running around Lawson with the bullhorn, talking about give a 3-year contract. What do you think of FAMU on this 4-game win streak?
That's huge. That's huge for the FAMU basketball program, and that's a big road win over Jackson State. So the fact that they, kind of started off slow, but it looks as though they bought into whatever the process is. And I'll tell you what, their coach was fired up the other night playing Jackson State, talking to the fans, and it was good back and forth. It's something about Jackson State FAMU. It's got a little something to it. So kudos to the Rattlers getting that done.
Good stuff, and they got 2 games at home when you talk about the Rattlers this week. So, they got a chance to really make a statement if they can find a way to get 2 back at home. It'd be fascinating when you talk about what's going on with the Rattlers, because they got the Bama schools, Alabama State, and then Alabama A&M. Drew, MEAC side, what are your grades? Norfolk State continues to do what they do. It seems like they got the cheat code. I got to change the test. I'm going to give a shout out to Dr. Banks listening in there. But the Norfolk State, I got to change the test, man. Are they just that sharp? Are they getting it done? What kind of grades you got over there for some of the MEAC schools? Unfortunately, unlike what you talked about on the women's side in terms of independence, we don't have much to talk about in terms of independence on the men's side. So a little bit of the MEAC.
Definitely got to give Norfolk the A. They are setting the curve in the class. Howard's down to 7 players, 7 rotational players right now. So that's gonna be tough to get through the regular season if you're Howard. But we know come tournament time, a 7-man rotation is pretty much all you see in a tournament anyway. So all Howard has to do is just hang around, get a decent draw in the tournament, and they could possibly do damage. And I'm sitting up here talking about Howard like they're a 500 team. I mean, they're 3-1 right now, so they're still in the upper echelon of the Mid-Eastern Athletic Conference. You said it earlier. Which Morgan team is going to be there? We just don't know. And who have we not talked about when it comes to the MEAC?
Central.
Bingo! There it is. And just like Texas Southern is to the SWAC, Central is to the MEAC. It just doesn't sound right come basketball season, come tournament time, come championship Sunday or championship Saturday, whichever day they play on this year, without Central in the MEAC and Texas Southern in the SWAC being in the mix. So I think in Bolton I trust. Lavelle Bolton is going to figure it out. You may beat them, but Lavelle Bolton is going to be probably the toughest out of any team that has to go into the MEAC tournament.
Good stuff. Perfect way, and we'll close it on that. With that being said, Norfolk State is really jumping on them a little bit in terms of what that looks like. And so Just wanted to say, Dr. Banks gave me an update. I forgot about this. Back December 15th, Norfolk State went into Greensboro and defeated the A&T on the women's side, 68-59 in terms of that matchup as we talk about that. And he put an appropriate question out there. Question is, should NCS, the Norfolk State women, particularly when you talk about the SEC wins and where they are record-wise and how they rolling, should they be ranked in the top 25? They certainly should be receiving some votes.
18-4, that's fair.
I think they should be in the mix. And if I was voting in it, they certainly would be in the top 25. I thought that was a perfect way to end it. With that being said,
if they were in the top 25, they would be the DEI team in the top 25, and we can't do that anymore, Dr. Cavill.
That's the problem right there. Thank you for listening to Inside HBCU Sports Lab. Make sure you share our podcast with your friends and colleagues. I am Dr. Kenyatta Cavill, the Dean of HBCU Sports, come from inside the lab in the College of HBCU Sports with Mike Washington, Charles Bishop. Although some would say that's the problem, that they shouldn't even need the DI and still should be in the top 25. Again, thank you for listening to Dr. Bill's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington, Charles Bishop every Tuesday and Thursday. We'll be back here on Thursday looking at the mid-major level, giving you some love on the NCAA Division II and NIA. We'll bring AD Drew back to see if we can get him back in here to give us some breakdown on that. But follow me, Dr. Kenyatta Cavill, that's DrKenyatta CAVIL on Facebook and Instagram. Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with YouTube and Facebook. Dream big, continue to move forward. We will talk with you soon. Charles?
Of course.
Drew?
Lecture.
Dismissed.